Greetings and a warm welcome to Rumbo Minero. I am called Cesar Campos and I will be co-hosting this program alongside Miguel Zavala. How are you, Miguel? Good to see you here.
Cesar, nice to meet you.
Always setting the mood for all our audience regarding the week that we are concluding, in which it has already been defined that the next 18th, the session of the Permanent Commission of Congress will take place, which will have to review in a second vote what was approved by the plenary. The previous week concerning the extension of the REINFO until the year 2026 and a set of conditions that the government of President José Herrera has imposed, which he himself has stated, are not negotiable, that is to say. For example, the exclusion of these 50,000 who had already been evaluated and mapped regarding whether they were in a position to formalize or not.
That's right, Cesar. And well, another interesting and concerning piece of news is the situation at the Talara refinery, which doesn't have the money to even pay for electricity.
You are required to make the energy payment to your supplier, who is a provider located in the Piura region, no less than 2 invoices. Well, the situation we have always analyzed of Peru, quite unfortunate, and hopefully there is someone who can give us, according to a crystal ball, some certain destiny about the state-owned oil company. Today, we are thrilled to announce the presence of 2 incredibly special guests at our event. I am engineer Juan José Herrera, serving as the general manager of Colquisiri Mining and previously holding the position of president at the Institute of Mining Engineers in Peru. With him, we are going to talk precisely about the climate of investment, about the situation of informality. Similarly, our second guest is also joining us.
That's right. Engineer Juan Sheput will be with us, former congressman and former minister of labor, with whom we will discuss the topic of REINFO. Also, what is coming up in the face of the upcoming elections, 2026, and this agreement that could be signed between Peru and Ecuador to combat illegal mining on the border.
Ensure you tune into the program from Rumbo Minero and catch our press team's latest report. Don't miss out on starting off with this exclusive coverage.
As we approach 2026, the outlook for the mining sector appears complex, especially due to the electoral contest that will be marked in the coming months. It is well established that the Peruvian economy relies heavily on mining as its primary driving force. Proof of this is that, by September 2025, the executed investment reached $3,909 million, a growth of 15.3% compared to the same period of the previous year. This was reported by the Minister of Energy and Mines, Luis Bravo de la Cruz, who also projected to close the year with a total investment of $5,100 million. This is complemented by the export performance. According to the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Tourism, between January and October of 2025, exports totaled $71,881 million, an increase of 20% compared to 2024, spurred by increased sales quantities and improved global price levels. The mining sector was decisive in this result, contributing $46,939 million and consolidating itself as the main axis of Peruvian foreign trade. However, looking towards 2026, greater caution in investments is expected. The election campaign could result in a public discussion where the technical proposals intended for this sector end up being relegated in favor of rhetoric that is distorted by opposing groups against the mining activity. The participation of 37 presidential candidates chosen by their parties in recent primary elections increases uncertainty not only due to the diversity and disparity of the government plans they may present, but also due to the possibility that some campaigns are financed by illicit economies such as illegal mining, a phenomenon that has grown alarmingly in the last 2 years. At this point, the challenge for the next government is critical, as it must undertake a direct fight against illegal mining, strengthening territorial control, ensuring resources for environmental oversight, and coordinating efforts with the regions. The fight against this scourge is not only environmental, but also economic and a defense of democratic institutionalism. Any neglect on this front will jeopardize the sector's competitiveness and the country's stability. According to Minister Bravo, the Ministry of Energy and Mines has authorized 200 new mining projects with an estimated investment of $6.450 billion, which represents an increase of 67% compared to the same previous period. This pace shows that Peru is a mining country and a significant player in the global energy transition. But it also needs to strengthen its competitiveness with clear rules that provide confidence and promote new investments. The country cannot afford to lose the momentum or the opportunities that mining offers today. The year 2026 will be a decisive year, and the next government's ability to ensure stability and institutionalism and a firm fight against illegal mining will be crucial for the future of the sector and national development.
We express our gratitude to the Rumbo Minero press team for providing us with a timely, accurate report. It has been instrumental in initiating a dialogue with our esteemed first guest, Engineer Juan José Herrera, General Manager of the Colquisiri Mining Company and former head of the Institute of Mining Engineers of Peru. Juan José, it's always a pleasure to have you on our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cesar, for the invitation. I am delighted to be present at this event.
Prior to delving into the details of the mining investment proposals, let's first consider the perspectives we hold on the matter. As we approach the end of 2025 and look ahead to 2026, I would like to hear your thoughts on the recent events in the Republic's Congress after the approval was passed. The extension of REINFO has been approved by Congress for an additional year, and the conditions established by President José Herrera's administration for the reforms. To maintain a whole picture that undoubtedly he says it's going down another path, we are going to observe it. What do you think?
What occurred in Congress was an initial vote with the understanding that it is still open to modifications, as this is just the beginning of the process. A confirmation. The problem, obviously, of extending one more year is extending the agony one more year. And I believe that the great challenge before us is figuring out how to achieve, in some manner, within that year, it was 13 characters long. How can we design a MAPE law that aligns with the interests of all parties involved, don't you think? However, at the same time, this law is once again an expansion that needs to be implemented and enforced effectively. Give carte blanche to continue in this a process where the informal mining operations do not perform. Is that correct? A job with proper care. Also concerned about labor rights, aren't we, when it comes to taking care of the environment? We are in the same situation, continuing with the same thing for 12 years.
And since the topic is so fragmented in reality regarding negative experiences that many people have when they think about mining, it is informal and illegal, perhaps imagining the scenario we suffered with the case of Poderosa in Patal's high Andean zones. But what is happening in the jungle, Juan José, is a terrible, terrible thing. Observe the significant number of individuals who relocated from Madre de Dios de la Pampa to engage in illegal mining activities in Puerto Inca, Huánuco. This occurrence was documented by Rumbo Minero. There are 77 concessions that have been taken advantage of at this moment in this circumstance, where they are invading and mobilizing absolutely illegal miners or those who practice illegal mining. That is the terrible thing, what must be highlighted.
And that is disastrous, right? Because the effect that all this illegal mining causes is not just environmental, it's social too, right? So there is a whole circle of trafficking and a terrible issue of logging. It's
there
amazing,
is illegal
right?
deforestation, human trafficking, river
and
pollution.
Above all, it also happens in many cases in areas that are prohibited. Isn't that correct? In areas with reserves, buffer zones, and the like, they have to follow certain regulations before entering. Illegal without the owner's authorization. So this is the daily bread, right? It is indeed a highly disastrous problem compounded by the environmental burden they leave behind. Is even worse. And that who is going to face it in the end? The same. Our responsibilities include paying
as a
taxes.
state.
Right? So that situation is truly disastrous in what is mining from lava, from laundries of gold, and where mercury also proliferates as it pleases, right? And that is enormous damage to the ecosystem. That's not something that will be resolved tomorrow. No, I mean, it's an issue that is much more complicated and leads to, and also contaminate the little life that there might be of fish, etc. And that ends up in the ingestion by the people who are there. The damage is extremely significant.
Juan José, you are a person who has been linked to the mining sector for many years, both in the private and institutional parts. And as if the topic of expanding the REINFO to 26-27 were already here. Or depending on what is decided, it's practically throwing this hot potato off to the next one, to the next government. In your opinion, what should be the job of the government, right? Of the executive branch? In order to definitively resolve this issue once and for all, you see, being more efficient in the matter of mining formalization? Or do you think it's a problem that won't have a solution in the short term?
In the very short period of time, which is going to be a full year, during which there will be shifts in government leadership, obviously it's not the most suitable time to focus. There must be a solution. There must be a way forward. At the very least, there ought to be a space for the solution. Traceability is carried out, for instance, on plants that engage in the illegal purchase of minerals as well. Or also the miners who are currently acting with the reinforcement in a certain way, again, illegal manner, in the sense that the damage there is. However, I do think that there is a need to focus on certain tasks and put in the effort. In order to design and structure a law that at least allows generating the foundations, or in any case what has already been done, to be able to strengthen it. But we cannot backtrack as a government. We cannot backtrack in the sense of everything that has already been suspended or eliminated.
No, forgive me for interrupting, but don't you think that the MAP law, right, proposes a consensus worked out by consensus by the previous government? It could be a good starting point, which, well, suspiciously was by the Energy and Mines Commission of Congress, hidden in some obscure location. You who have been able to see the points that have been addressed in this MAPI law?
It is a good starting point, but definitely many things need to be refined. For example, this issue of concessions. Oh, it's extremely dangerous, isn't it? Trying to attempt to reduce the duration of the right's validity at 5 years old, when we all know that developing formal, serious mining, so about 10 or 15 years. Once the deposit is discovered, a deadline must be set in a timely manner for further action to take place. Isn't that correct? It is crucial to keep progressing in the mining industry, as we are seeing it now in terms of formality. There are projects of different sizes, including small, medium, and large ones. However, we do have the current system or process in place for completing the task at hand. Establish formal agreements to operate as small-scale artisanal or traditional miners, ensuring their existence. Is that right? Therefore, I believe that this must not be eliminated whatsoever. It ought to proceed with a framework somewhat more. This, which is conceived in order to be able to structure what is actually a formalization process. The topic of formalization starts with the desire to formalize. At these prices we have nowadays, everything should be formal. It doesn't have to be informal. It used to be acceptable to operate unlawfully, correct? Nowadays, there's an opportunity to adhere to labor and environmental concerns, with everything that the regulations demand today.
At this juncture, it is worth noting the steep cost of minerals in the global market as reflected in international prices, to what is commonly referred to as the investment climate, a term that is frequently used in a way that is sometimes incidental. Of course, the political volatility, the problems with formalization, organized crime now around. Certainly, some mining operators may choose to postpone investment. However, the overall investment climate is expected to remain positive, as many of us are optimistic. Because of the high demand that the world is going to have, that the world of copper already has, a significant element that we are going to generate, particularly due to the discussion framework we have been employing during the most recent mining conferences. Perumin has addressed it, Andesmin has addressed it, which is a meeting that just took place in Ica, the regional commonwealth of the Andes, and of course, Expomina also has it on their 2026 agenda organized by the Digama Group. How will we going to be able to meet that, the highest that there is right now, with a reduced supply of copper production, and that has to do with the investment climate? Do you think that climate will improve at all in the year 2026?
It definitely has to improve. So the opportunity that the nation has to emerge, to progress, isn't that right? From poverty, if it doesn't achieve growth exceeding 5%, we are not going to be able to reduce it. He is exactly pushing forward the copper projects. The major copper projects are significant, but that doesn't mean the small or medium ones aren't important. They still hold their own value and significance. Because in the end, that is the sustenance for many, but it must be done formally. So the opportunity that the country has in in one agenda, the cost of projects amounts to around $60 or $70 billion, with approximately 80% of it being allocated to copper. 80% of the projects are copper, and really, by the year 2035, as a country, we should aim to achieve 1 million fine tons more. And that can be achieved with, I believe, 3 projects that must be promoted. It is let's say, a blessing that Aunt Maria, for example, has finally taken the path she has taken after, I believe, 10 years of postponement. And that should be taken as an example, as a breaking point for the things that must be done from now on.
That's where my question lies. If you see, for example, the Tia Maria case as successful, it will serve as a sort of flagship vessel, wouldn't you say, that will lead the way in enhancing that atmosphere of investment and trust within modern mining operations, sustainable and socially committed?
It has to happen. It's irresponsible for it not to happen. I strongly believe that everyone is dedicated to this cause. The government, civil society, and academia are all fully committed and invested in making a difference. Indeed, every single one of us is fully committed to achieving that objective. There are 2 important objectives here. One is the current production, which is at 2,750,000 metric tons of fine copper. Sustaining it or making it better requires expansions and efforts that each ongoing operation can contribute, operations that are presently in progress, all sizes, formal ones. And the other thing is the new additions that must be included. In other words, if we aim to have 1 million more fine tons by 2035, it means that at least 3 or 4 projects must come into play, but it also means that what exists at 2.75 must be maintained or grow. And that is a big challenge. And for that, the government also has to provide facilities. Absolutely, very clear and straightforward in the way that they permit that growth for those of us who are currently operating. Because there are countless permits required for relocating a pump or moving a motor, among other similar tasks. That thing over there, I think it needs to improve notably. So there is a, let's say, a clear objective between what operates nowadays and what is coming in the future. We see the case of Quellaveco. Quellaveco has added a significant production, and that's why we have moved to 2.75 million fine tons. It's like 300,000 fine tons that have been added. But what is the scale of this project? $5 billion or more. $5 billion projects or more are what will actually boost the country.
And it worries you, I imagine, Juan José, does the fact that little or nothing has been advanced regarding the digital single window also worry you, right? Announced with great fanfare in Peru in the year 23, right? First, they talked about how this will be implemented in 6 months, a year, right? Several years have passed, and up to now, we see nothing. Nothing concrete. I think this should also be one of the pending and urgent tasks on the part of next government if it wants to further boost the investments. I wanted to get your opinion on that. I also wanted to inquire about a developing debate on the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Tourism's proposal to allocate 10 Air Force in salaries 43,26145, last KMC 2187, EU CVPL, LPKIHF first, seconds in mountain airtime, % of the mining canon, minor for tourist infrastructure, right? How do you see this proposal that might suddenly appear? Well, let me see. Well, are some regional projects that have already been committed suddenly finding themselves in jeopardy?
Well, regarding the first thing, I strongly believe that discovering motivation through the single window is essential, and fully embracing the concept of the single window is key. As a challenge to have everything interconnected, because many ministries are involved in the consultation. Therefore, a centralized coordination is necessary for that. And we are really talking about projects. These iconic symbols should definitely be considered, right? Just like, key ones. One, a clear goal for each incoming government. If each government inaugurated at least one worth $5 billion, I believe it would add a lot. So the single window will help to ensure that if everything is linked today with all the technology available, these systems have the ability to be interconnected, enabling a faster flow of information among them. And it is also crucial to set up the correct timelines, right? It's essential to avoid unresolved queries lingering indefinitely. The process can only move forward once they are addressed. That is really very bad for this whole process that should be as fast as possible. Regarding the canon, there have also been a series of proposals to reformulate the distribution of the canon, right? So that it goes, for instance, to stimulate sectors that have the potential to definitely produce. Everything that can be produced seriously, I think, is welcome. Distribute part of the canon, and I think there also needs to be visibility into what things the canon money is used for, and a follow-up to ensure that what is done really ends up in the established budgets. Because many things are done, they don't get finished, and remain open as if they need more budget. This is an everyday occurrence in all the infrastructure they build in all the regions. So I believe that it is important that the canon achieve a much better distribution. At times it appears that the canon is only directed toward the region where you see mining operates, but I think it should be better distributed in many other regions where it doesn't reach much, to say almost nothing.
But we have focused regions where the tourism potential is very important. Imagine Cajamarca, Cusco, where there is mining operation and where indeed, and it is for discussion, of course, 10% would help mobilize and motorize infrastructure, boosting the region's economy too.
Yes, I think the canon, if they are talking about this percentage, for that is also within the region where it occurs, these minerals, tourism is also being boosted, and we welcome it. Everything that this signifies for economic growth of the areas is extremely important. Cajamarca and Apurímac have so much to develop, like tourism, which can certainly be applied there.
Juan José, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you very much for your insights, and of course, we are committed to inviting you again soon.
Thank you, Cesar Miguel. We're back.
Special thanks to engineer Juan José Herrera, who serves as the manager of Colquisiri Mining and previously held the position of the head of the Institute of Mining Engineers of Peru. Stay tuned as we will return shortly after a brief intermission. Entering our international division, America Mining remains closely connected to Wall Street, New York, as always. With José Gonzáles, editor of the international section of Rumbo Minero magazine. José, as always, a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, Cesar, delighted.
The mineral prices, especially the most important ones, never cease to surprise us, and the year 2025 closes with silver prices being expensive, which has doubled not only the same but has also surpassed copper and gold, which we are following very closely. The Lima Stock Exchange has been impacted due to recent events. It is important to understand the driving forces behind this and to assess the future outlook for silver in this case.
According to Bloomberg, silver and gold have replaced gold as the most highly valued metal heading into 2026. We are already thinking about next year's futures as there are only a few weeks left for 2025 to close. In preparation for unprecedented surges, both institutional and retail traders are gearing up for record-breaking increases that will exceed the historic levels silver has recently hit. $60 during the past couple of weeks. The silver, as you pointed out, throughout the year there has been an almost twofold increase in its value, with the majority of the growth taking place in the recent 2 months, attributed to limited supply in London's reference markets. Increasing interest in India, along with the emergence of silver-backed exchange-traded funds, ETFs, are contributing to the growing demand for precious metals. Retail demand is currently weak, and challenges are present in various markets. Chinese investors are experiencing their lowest levels of activity in a decade. According to Marex Group, a more pronounced upward parabolic movement has occurred than what was observed in previous rises. In other words, the parable has pointed out that the climb, it implies that the markets are more concentrated and very focused on the short term. Since gold reached a record on October 20th, it has moved sideways. Silver has gained 11% and copper has risen 9%. More than $1 billion US dollars have been invested into the IT, specifically the iShares Silver Trust ETF, which is the one that trades the most silver during the last week, surpassing the inflow of funds into gold-linked ETFs. Western investors have been allocated funds for investment. On the other hand, much lower, much smaller than other investors who invest in ETFs, which is putting even more pressure on the metal. The option trading on COMEX futures within the United States has also seen a surge in buying activity along with broader market oscillations, reflecting the perspective of the institutional investors, which is added to the perspective of the small investors. The greatest volatility that these increases could imply for the market going forward will have to do with market fluctuations. The premium on silver with this latest increase is 82% compared to its historical averages, reaching its highest level since 1979. According to metals and minerals analysts, it's difficult to determine what the support level will be with these increases. The fluctuations are very large and speak of levels that could be between the current $60 and $85 in the coming months.
Jose, on the other hand, copper has also experienced this constant increase. And tell us a little about what the mineral market analysts are saying and metals say about this. And well, what will be the trend and dynamism of copper as we approach the end of 2025?
Copper has been, as you know, Miguel, a central topic in the discussion this year, both because of the tariffs proposed by the Trump administration, due to some consensus that is tending to solidify that we will have a deficit within the proposal and an increasing demand. Bloomberg has just published a lengthy report reviewing the year's topics. And despite the fact that the financial component of copper is not the same as that of silver and gold, which is very clear as was pointed out, it's the demands for clean energy and artificial intelligence and the supply constraints due to the concentration of copper production in Chile, Peru, and the Republic of the Congo, and refining in China, and the fact that a mine takes 15 years will continue to maintain pressure on copper. This week, we have once again hit a record high of $11,600 for the turnover at the London Metal Exchange floor, with contracts on the COMEX, the North American market, rising more than 4 points. Trump's policies had caused a disturbance in the commercial copper flows, as previously mentioned, and the arbitration of major metal and mineral trading houses like Mercuria, Trafigura, and Glencore continued to benefit from those arbitrations. The decrease in prices was due to the influence of the metal market pressure, which has also been fed by interruptions in large mines due to various accidents, which also underscore the risk involved in underground mining, which is somewhat the future. In both instances, a seismic occurrence. In 3 instances, a seismic disturbance, a flooding event. A challenge with a mud issue has caused a halt in operations at 3 major copper mines, impacting demand. It is possible that these types of situations may arise again in the future. Now then, one of the topics that the copper operators are going to see moving forward is that President Trump has stated that he is going to review the tariffs placed on copper, on cathodes, anodes, and concentrates next year. That is to say, the issue of tariffs in relation to production has not stopped. And in the United States, material continues to be withheld due to volatility, demand, and the supply deficit. In addition to the policies of the Trump administration, moving forward, arbitration will be a topic for the next year. And regardless of whether there is a correction in copper prices of 10% or 15% in the coming weeks or months, despite the market's volatility, structural factors will continue to uphold the trend of rising prices, with fluctuations unable to change this ongoing upward trajectory in the metal of industrialization.
Jose, as always, thank you very much for your insightful analysis. We will continue doing it in the coming weeks, always with the sharpness that characterizes you, and now giving perspectives for the year 2026 of what will happen in the global mining landscape. Thank you very much.
Nice to make your acquaintance.
José Gonzáles, the editor for Rumbo Minero, hails from Wall Street, New York City, bringing an international perspective to his work. You're familiar with the magazine Rumbo Minero, which you can access for free online? Take advantage of this opportunity to read it at your leisure and stay informed. www.rumbominero.com. Not only what we discuss every week with José Gonzáles and the current updated information on the panorama mining. A break and we'll be back. As previously mentioned, we are delighted to have engineer Juan Sheput joining us at the Rumbo Minero studios. Thank you for his warm welcome. As we all know, former Congressman of the Republic and also former head of the Ministry of Labor and Employment Promotion. Juan, as always, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Same pleasure for you and Miguel.
And transcending REINFO and extensions and the whole picture that has emerged in these last few days, we want to start affirming a perspective of what might happen next year. Maybe it's essential for candidates and politicians to reach a consensus on how to approach this vital industry together, highlighting the importance of developing a strategic roadmap for the future. Furthermore, it has been effectively showcased as the driving force behind our economy. In this regard, what actions can be taken? With your political expertise, what recommendations would you propose?
Look, I believe that there must be a clear awareness that the power will reside in the Senate, and I think that is a matter. It is imperative for all business leaders and individuals to actively engage with and adopt this fundamental idea in order to positively impact the country's economic trajectory moving forward. Unfortunately, we cannot take the REINFO out of the spotlight, since it's extended till 2026's end, accomplished year 2026. But I have the feeling that this Congress, which lasts until July 28th, will do nothing in the first semester regarding the MAPI law. That is, it will try to generate the conditions so that that illegality, that informality can be restructured again. So from there, the key is what the next Congress will do. Is that correct? This individual is departing without much exertion. So from that moment, I believe it is important to establish concepts such as the importance of who will arrive. Correct. Identify yourself, please.
Juan, forgive me before you continue and explain to our audience why the Senate's presence, that is, restoring the upper chamber, would permit a much better feasibility assessment for a discussion concerning the future of the mining industry.
Because the legislative initiative will rest solely and exclusively with the Chamber of Deputies, and let's suppose that an extension of 5 years comes out of there, or as Guido Bellido intended, add indefinitely, right? In other words, if it no longer carries an expiration date, then the Senate holds the authority to reject it, to either archive it, send it back, or make changes within the spirit. Therefore, the discussions that are going to be held over there will be much more restricted and concise. And on the other hand, they will allow stopping any kind of feverish madness coming from the House of Representatives. And there are precedents in the political history of Peru, right? We have seen how the quintessential example, the aspirations for state control by Alan Garcia back in 1987 were...
She was detained by the apristas themselves in the Senate, also
that they had a majority in the Senate
by
Luis
Luis
Alberto Sanchez. Of course, and that they had a majority in the Senate. So there was an internal confrontation, but the House prevailed. In circumstances like the current one, what I fear is that this software, this way of acting has been crystal clear since the moment they controlled the parliament in that year, the illegal miners. So they have indeed started a process of thinking about the future Congress to such an extent that I believe that even the impeachment of Dina Boluarte, that change of opinion from the left to be able to oust her, has to do with having a minister like Jorge Montero who said no to the extension, no to the reincorporation of the illegals, and she supported him. So I believe that has been an element that has played, has weighed, so that the left-wing parliamentarians turn their backs on Dina Boluarte. So from the moment they realize that Congress is going to have a special power, I think they will actively work on having at least consistent majorities, right? Or solid minorities.
Juan, I have a couple of questions regarding the REINFO topic that I'd like to discuss with you. Well, it seems like this will be extended until December 31st, 2026. Well, the question is what will happen with the 50,000 excluded REINFOs? I mean, it's a big unknown. Will they continue working illegally? Case reviews will happen, right? Because Minem is also concerned. Could it be that he has not spoken or does not have a clear stance on this issue, right? This is particularly important as Maximo Gallo has also resumed overseeing the formalization of mining activities. I wanted your opinion concerning this matter. And the second point, moving forward towards the elections scheduled for the following year, what do you think will be the discourse of the different presidential candidates? Since we are now talking about reviewing contracts, about redefining tax issues, including a more active participation on the part of the state regarding the mining subject matter. Furthermore, the discourse is also, well, more open market. What do you think will be the predominant discourse in the run-up to the 2026 campaign? What possible implications or repercussions could there be for the formal mining sector in our country?
Firstly, regarding the 50,000 excluded miners, those who have not been registered and have not returned, I think that is a good aspect of the ruling. I believe that ruling has a trap in its second supplementary provision. They are talking about a census conducted by the INEI, which must be carried out in any case in the coming months. This population survey will be a form of hidden or camouflaged reinforcement, because from the moment the INEI starts conducting a census to clarify the number of miners, have no doubt that those 50,000 will say, I am an artisanal miner, or I am a miner, with any kind of adjective, right? So from the moment they are registered, that they have the official recognition of the state. Subsequently, what follows is quite simply the regulation that permits them to carry out their operations.
I want to apologize for interrupting you earlier, but we had Cecilia Julkarima join us. She was here representing a guild that focuses on supporting small-scale and artisanal miners, asking for this census to be able to separate, right? Those who truly wanted to formalize and those who did not want to formalize. You see...
No, I have a different perspective on this, and I comprehend it well. When I shared this recently at the Engineers College, some friends suggested that I may lack certainty in my thoughts. Maybe consider reaching out to economist Jorge Montero, who formerly held the position of Minister of Energy and Mines, to inquire about his current perspective on the issue at hand. Isn't it right? When I saw that, I instantly knew. In the ruling, I said no, there's the little trick. As simple as that. Look, let's not forget that the argument for creating the REINFO was that, right? To separate the illegals from the informal workers who are different. See where we are standing right now. It was never possible to separate, it's a very thin line, so the same argument is used now to separate the wheat from the chaff. But in practice, it will be the official recognition of your existence before the state. And from that moment, as your existence has to be recognized because an organization like INEI authorizes it, the next step is providing them with the necessary facilities to participate in the formal process. To me, that's a little trick. Or in any case, it's the foundation for any type of future modification very soon, so that these people can be accepted back into the system.
Indeed, Jorge Montero, my suggestion was to complete the formalization process, hence the establishment of this consensus base, known as the famous 11 points, had been carefully devised.
Sure.
Following the conclusion of the formalization process for the MAPE law, it was pointing out it's necessary to proceed with the census, evidently, to see if there are still any remnants.
That's
Because
right.
those 50,000 who could enter a formalization process have already appeared completely mapped out. The Catholic Center has provided a very interesting piece of data that I want to steer your analysis toward for a moment. With respect to the level of competitiveness that the principal domestic industries possess, the top place in technologization goes to mining, although the advancements are not quite on par with China, Canada, and Australia at the moment. The progress is evident, but there is still room for further development. And yet it is a process that does not conclude or finish. And the second place is occupied by agro-exportation. In other words, Peru is already in a league where the term competitiveness, meaning the effectiveness of our production, permanent, long-lasting, environmentally friendly, and furthermore, combined with the obligations and workforce regulations pertaining to corporate community affiliations, are being fulfilled. We must affirm and absorb this competitiveness in any case, to ensure the participation of both small-scale miners and artisanal miners within this group. How could this process take place?
Look, an ecosystem needs to be created that favors, well, the unique circumstances of mining, similar to how agro-exportation has operated in Ica. For example, this issue of the agro-exportation promotion law might be criticized here in Lima by some NGOs, but in Ica people are happy. Because there is full employment, and it is even absorbing employment from surrounding areas.
Similar to Trujillo as well.
Just like Trujillo, even in Lambayeque, all of the north, right? People are happy because they have access to credit, they have credit cards, they can get into debt, they are on payroll, they are formal. Why? Because it was accompanied telling a story based on factual information. I believe that in Peru, that scheme has not been built yet. More than communication, it's about cultural change, in the sense that we cannot ignore mining. Peru is an ancient mining country. It is a country whose key element in its presence as a nation, as a republic, and especially historically, is mining. 5,000 years, right? You see objects made of minerals, which are truly astonishing. Therefore, it's a situation we haven't internalized, as if we cannot live with our backs turned to it. There is a kind of shyness in the mining sector about not stating the achievements that exist. For my part, look, I have been a witness. I have been to Antamina, I have been to Las Bambas when I was the Minister of Labor. And I was a witness to what the presence of the mining company meant in the locality, the way it encouraged the development of the surrounding locality, but everything remained within the realm of internal awards and local recognition, and there were no positive messages about mining reaching the outside.
Their embrace.
The hug, no, that didn't exist, right? So look, there are stories that aren't told. In Peru, a group of exceptional engineers, now retired, played a pivotal role in shaping the field of engineering and leaving a lasting impact for generations to come. Operated under the control of Cerro de Pasco Corporation. There is an entire bilingual generation of engineers from Junín, from the Central Highlands, who were educated at the best universities in the United States. And subsequently, they evolved into, quite clearly, the leaders of significant families within the engineering sector that have given strength to the National University of Engineering. But who knows that small circles, so engineering, it is crucial to increase its visibility as it gains a higher prominence. Now, unfortunately, sometimes the miner feels, how does that feel psychologically? No, I'm rich and they won't accept me. Very well, you are rich, but you also generate wealth. So that way the triumph looks, or in any case, the mining exploitation and the development it generates in the area. It requires a more prominent position in the spotlight. Since we need to reply to everyone, I'm currently at Tia Maria, just to let you know. Regrettably, I deeply deplore the current behavior of the ministers, sending their aides instead of attending personally. In that manner, they will never truly grasp the issue. When speaking with individuals, they desire progress and growth in society. I have talked with people from Cajamarca, and the Cajamaquinos tell me there's poverty now where there was wealth before. Who is responsible for putting the microphone on them? Therefore, I firmly believe in the importance of this ecosystem, encompassing both technology and society. Synonym, or simply call it culture, it is a matter in which we must become involved, and it will not be impossible that the mining to acquire the role it truly deserves.
Juan, a question is still pending, right?
What should the...
A little bit, what discourse will predominate, right? Leading up to the next elections regarding the... Are you referring to mining, right? People are worried about this upcoming activity. These upcoming elections are expected to be highly confrontational. And essentially, mining will be like a piñata that everyone, including all the candidates, will take turns hitting. It's a shared activity with widespread participation.
I'm extremely cynical and have no doubt that illegal mining will pose a significant challenge for any candidate. It will be very difficult for them to address its implications. We are seeing in the current parliament how they have had consistent votes in favor of expanding the REINFO. And I believe that, in that case, prioritization is necessary. I believe that government teams play a crucial role in protecting the production chain and finding the most effective strategies to tackle informal practices. I believe that should be the ideal discourse in any case. Traceability, where it starts, the origin, the process, and the sale, essentially they are viewed from a technical perspective as a blockchain, a chain identifiable, it's supervisable, right? And legally punishable, meaning it's penalized if not complied with. It's an issue that must be included in the government's plans. But in the political discourse, I don't think there is a position different from the one we currently have. There are many campaign funds involved, especially individual ones. So it will be very difficult for a presidential or congressional candidate to adopt a message against them, right?
Could you please provide a short reply to this last inquiry, dear Juan, about the meeting that President José Herrera has organized with his counterpart from Ecuador, Daniel? Mr. Noboa, this marks the 16th international encounter between Peru and Ecuador, and a memorandum has been introduced to establish a formal agreement. What is your opinion on the monitoring and regulation of illegal mining across borders?
That's very good, because I truly believe this is something that has been previously addressed concerning the gold and the contraband trade in locations such as Colombia. And with Colombia, the relationship is excellent at the armed forces level, even to prevent this mobilization, these transfers of people from existing. At the level of the armed forces, but not at the political level, there have been agreements between Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. I believe that if they now give it consistency and we recover the presidential diplomacy that we lost with Dina Boluarte. President Boluarte refrained from engaging in presidential diplomacy, which is crucial. However, if President Jerry collaborates with President Noboa and manages to come to a mutual agreement, the situation could change significantly. Then it becomes an order that can be executed. I think that's very important, right?
Totally agree. Juan, as always, thank you very much for being here on Rumbo Minero, and we will continue talking, of course, taking advantage of all your background and knowledge on these topics in a future edition. Thank you, Engineer Juan Sheput, for joining us on Rumbo Minero. Now let's transition to the Mining and Society segment hosted by Iván Arenas. Your presence is always appreciated, and we are grateful for your contribution.
At this point, it's absolutely certain that the reinforcements will be prolonged in the Standing Committee for an additional year, without a shadow of a doubt. The question is no longer that not even what type of REINFO they will extend, but the question is something else. The question is, will there be another extension of the REINFO? That is to say, from this so-called last extension of the REINFO, will there be another extension of the REINFO? Some of us say that it is evident that another extension of the REINFO could come. Now, what would be the reason for it not to be extended? The reason would be basically a technical reason. There are 31.5 thousand active REINFOs only in the past 6 months, but nothing before. 64 have been formalized. In the next 6 months or 1 year, we should finish all 31,565 REINFOs. It is an absolutely technical matter. To review the environmental management instruments much faster, but there is an important issue and thorny, which are the exploitation agreements. How can we address this significant issue effectively? The problem between the concessionaire and who is in the mining work, that is, the informal miner. There lies the main reason. And there, moreover, will be one of the arguments that will be put forward next year, which is, by the way, an electoral year. If we fail to address the two major issues at hand, our actions will have consequences. With the exploitation agreements between the concessionaire and the informal miner, and how we streamline the procedures for the so-called IGA form, then it is widely certain. Next year, we can expect another round of expansions for REINFO, continuing indefinitely. This cycle will keep us constantly evolving and growing. We will be discussing these things next week. Thank you very much, friends.
We have reached the end of the program, Miguel, and we are going to highlight from the dialogues and interviews we have conducted, both with Juan José Herrera from Colquisiri, the general manager of Colquisiri Mining, and engineer Juan Sheput, ex-congressman, an aspect that seems important to us, starting to look a bit at the future and the significance the mining issue will have, which hopefully, as you pointed out, does not become once again the piñata of political debates, and instead the other side, the other face, the balance is seen. The level of competitiveness, modernity, advancement, and investment attraction in a climate, moreover, where the demand for copper is rising worldwide, as our international editor also tells us. Our international editor, José Gonzáles.
I'll take away the canon issue from the interview with engineer Juan José Herrera after the Ministry of Trade and Tourism put forward that proposal for consideration. Allocate 10% for tourism infrastructure. Anything that benefits the communities, the population, is welcome, as long as it is completed.
It's finished, but that's what Juan José Herrera was referring to, right? Because unfortunately, regional and local governments don't always finish properly channeling the canon they receive. We have become fatigued from discussing that particular subject, and we must find a way to revamp the idea and provide some form of backing for tourism infrastructure. Well, it would be relevant, and I think Juan Sheput is not wrong in his political approach, that probably the next Senate, since it has the final say in the approval process, about the legislative process the initiative is proposed, could perhaps play a better role and not leave it in the hands of the chaos we currently have in parliamentary representation too, at times, to conclude the discussion process of a law, especially in the mining sector, absolutely populist and contrary to the national interest.
And well, he mentioned it regarding this census, right? To see who are informal and illegal within a world so vast in the mining topic,
The census is necessary,
That's
but
right,
as Jorge Montero
precisely
already
so.
said, it must happen after the formalization process. Rather, it fulfills what you were pointing out. It's done beforehand. Everyone will say they are just formalizing things around the corner, and that's not the reality.
Right, Cesar.
All right, my name is Cesar Campos, and along with Miguel Zavala, we have been presenting this show. We're excited to have you join us again next week, tuning into the PBO channel as always. See you then.